Well, it's truly an honor to be here. I spoke to the Ironworkers 5 years ago to this group out in Las Vegas. And times have changed, but my opinion of you has not. It's just an amazing group of hardworking people that have made a difference. I'm from Indianapolis. I'm the Colts community spokesperson, and I know wearing a Colts shirt in a room full of people from all over North America is interesting. I know not everybody's a Colts fan. I'm okay with that. But I tell you what, I love my job. But I grew up in a wonderful community in Indiana with two wonderful parents that were hard workers. That taught me the importance of working hard, to go after the things you want, that life's not always going to be easy, that the economy goes up and down, you face problems. My dad was a school teacher for 36 years. My mom worked for the Red Cross. They gave back to our communities. I was a typical Hoosier kid. I played basketball, went about my business, enjoyed life, played outside, worked in the cornfields, always had a job, loving it. I played high school basketball. I went on to get a little bit bigger in college, and I actually played lacrosse all 4 years at Purdue University. Maybe 4.5, 5 years at Purdue University. It took me a while to get out of school. I really enjoyed school. But then I got a job in corporate America. I thought I was making a difference. Every day I had that just fire in my belly that I wanted to go out there and do the best that I could. I got a job as a corporate recruiter at age 22, and it was a good job. Things were going well. Had my own place, doing good. Every single day just went in there with intensity to change the world. I never want to lose that, because I knew that my smile, my efforts affected the people around me. My attitude affected my coworkers, my bosses, my supervisors, anybody that I came in contact with. But one day I got driving to work, and I got stuck in traffic, and a friend called me on the phone, and she said, "Hey, you need to turn on the radio and listen to what's going on." So I turned on the radio and heard the events of 9/11 starting to unfold. It was something that obviously changed us. It changed this country. It changed this whole world, how we do things. But something inside of me was stirring. Something inside of me was saying, hey, you can do something. You're a big kid physically. You can serve in the military. If it wasn't going to be me, it'd be somebody else filling those shoes. Mentally, I believed in it. My father had been an F-4 fighter pilot in the Marine Corps. My grandfather had served in Northern Africa in World War II. My grandfather had 4 brothers. All 5 were deployed at World War II at the exact same time. 4 of them were shot and injured. They all thankfully survived. My grandfather was shot in the left arm in Northern Africa fighting. When he went down, he said one of his own men picked him up on the battlefield, carried him to safety. He said when he awoke from his injuries, he could hear Amazing Grace being played on the bagpipes. He said he knew he was in heaven. He said, then I heard my sergeant's voice. And there was no way that man had made it to heaven. These are the kind of stories that I grew up with about serving, the nation that we live in, doing the right thing. And so I said, all right, this is what I want to do. So in 2003, I made the decision after a lot of prayers, a lot of deliberation, that I would join the United States Marine Corps. In 2004, at the age of 27, they sent me to boot camp. And I quickly realized that 27 is not young to go to boot camp. I was not only old at boot camp, I was the oldest one there. Older than most of my drill instructors. 10 years older than some of the recruits. They were 17 years old, and I doubted that age for a while. A lot of times, we look for comfort among similarities and generations, and I was 10 years older, and I thought I wouldn't connect with these young men. I thought I knew a lot more about the world. I thought I was more mature. But then I had to honor what they were doing. They were making the same commitment I was at a younger age, and so I had to be respectful of that. But also, these guys were my lifeline. They were going to be responsible for my life. I was going to be responsible for theirs. And I did it. I went through 13 weeks of grueling boot camp, and I became a United States Marine. And I was proud to follow in my father's footsteps, but also just the traditions of this country. The traditions that I know a lot of people in this room have served. But I also knew that I wanted to go. I wanted to be in the infantry, the frontline guy, so I joined the infantry. Did 9 more weeks at infantry rifleman school. Went back to my job after that. I was a reservist out of Indiana. So I was doing a week in the month, 2 weeks in the summer. Until January of 2006, I got the phone call saying that we'd been activated. That we were going to head over to Iraq to help fight in the war. I was excited about that. It's what I'd wanted to do. But I had an amazing sergeant that knew that I'd be excited, but he also was smart enough to know there are other emotions tied to that. He knew that I'd be nervous, I'd be scared about certain things that I'd have to tell my family, have to have hard conversations. But he said, Bliel, just do what you've always done. Work hard, but enjoy this blessed life we've been given. For the next couple months since we had hard conversation, had a few tears, but overall had a great time, a lot of laughs. And then we get back to training. Marines train to go back. We train to prepare for what we're about to face over there. We have big mock cities, city blocks that we prepare in, kicking open doors, doing the things we do over there. And in September of 2006, my unit got sent to the city of Fallujah, Iraq. Fallujah was a bad spot. A lot of terrorist activity, a lot of roadside bombs, a lot of sniper attacks. We were there to go after some guys. We were kicking open doors at 3, 4 in the morning. And it was hard to do that to somebody else's town, to go into someone's country when you know there are innocent lives there, but we also knew that we had to be doing it. But also I saw a city that doesn't have amazing structures like we have here. It doesn't have the amazing work that the men and women in this room take care of in Northern America, across this world for us. I saw a place that was just littered with destruction. But on October 15th of 2006, I was on combat patrols that day. So I was chasing after guys. We were in Humvees. We were chasing down vehicles. We were surrounding them, pulling them out, sending them off to jail, doing this one at the other, at the other. After a particular stop, I loaded back up. I climbed back up into my Humvee, took off driving down that dirt road in Fallujah, but we had to do a quick U-turn over the median. Turn around real fast. So we turned over the median. As soon as we did that, that's when the bomb went off, and my world went black. I was instantly knocked out. My big bulletproof vest, my SAPI plate came up and broke my jaw. Those other Marines, those 17 and 18-year-old kids that were now 19 and 20 that I once doubted their age just because it was a different generation, they went into that fire. They got me out. They tourniqueted my legs. And I know here at Ironworkers and Impact, it's all about safety. And I tell you what, I'm glad we practice safety. I'm glad we go over the rules, and I'm glad we go over so much and so much because I'm saved because of those safety procedures. Because one, when a bomb goes off, they can't immediately rush in. They have to make sure there's no other secondary devices. Two, we all carry tourniquets on us. So they carried tourniquets and put them on my legs. It's the reason I didn't bleed out. And those guys had prepared for the worst to happen. We had worked together, so we knew what to do. But I woke up 5 days later. I woke up in Landstuhl, Germany in a hospital. No recollection of what happened. The last thing I could remember, I'd been in a war zone. We'd been fighting guys, going after targets. Now I lay in a hospital bed. My jaw had been wired shut. I had a trach in my neck to breathe. I had casts on both my wrists. But I knew I had fellow brothers in that vehicle with me, the guys I'd lived and trained with for years. And they explained the hardest part of everything, that I lost 2 of my guys. My sergeant had been killed in front of me, and my roommate, one of my closest friends, was killed next to me. My gunner had survived. He lost a leg, but he's doing good. My driver was in the same explosion. The same vehicle wasn't touched. He didn't have a single scratch on him. He actually finished the tour. And I'm thankful for that. Then they had to explain all this, the extent of my injuries, what else had happened. They told me that obviously I lost both of my legs above the knee. I have 27 pins in my hip, 6-inch screw in my pelvis. I broke my nose, my jaw, both my wrists, 4 fingers. They classified me with post-traumatic stress disorder and severe traumatic brain injury. My father tells everyone, his brain was like that before. He's absolutely right. It's always been this messed up. I'm not going to lie. But I was hurt, I was scared, and I started down a recovery process. I came back here to the United States, and I tell you what, treated very well. The support that we received, amazing. I was thankful for that. But I went through a long battle of being now 29 years old and being scared to go into public, scared of what I now look like. I'd been 6'1", 200 pounds, a big tough Marine. I withered down to 110 pounds. Sat in a wheelchair for the first time in my life and was scared to go into public. But the opportunity that I got one day to get out of that hospital is something I never could pass up. My sergeant was somebody that always pushed me to be better, to push me to be harder, stronger. And he always pushed me to get out of that hospital. I didn't want to leave. Like I said, I didn't want to be seen, but the day he approached me with this opportunity, like I said, it was too good. He said, Bliel, how would you like to go see the Indianapolis Colts play the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl? I think I might be able to do that, Sergeant. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big Indy kid. I'm born and raised there. That was my team, and we were very blessed. I came down to Miami, sat in the pouring rain, and was very fortunate to see Indianapolis bring home a championship. But I realized something that day. It wasn't about what I looked like. I was in front of tens of thousands of people, as skinny as could be. It was about that kid my mom and dad had raised. My community, my teachers, my coaches has always pushed me to work hard, that things were difficult. My time in the Marine Corps, we complained a lot, but we kept going because of the people that we were surrounded by, a brotherhood, the sisterhood. And I said, I will do this. I'll get my life back. And I started down that road to recovery to learn how to walk again, to get my legs back underneath me. And it was a long process. It was a process where I spent day in and day out learning to get my life back, learning to walk on prosthetic legs, learning to fall, but to stand back up. I spent 2 years in a hospital learning to recover, but the support that I received was amazing. My fellow brothers and sisters who had served with me, who had been hurt, had gone through things, were the ones that pushed each other, got each other's encouragement, continued to push, help out when things went bad, but also in the successes continued to thrive on one another. I got to meet the Indianapolis Colts during my time out at Walter Reed. They had stopped by after winning the championship, and I actually got to meet the owner of the Colts, Mr. Jim Irsay. And Mr. Irsay and I had actually mutual acquaintance. So when he came out there, he found me. He said, Josh, I know you're from Indianapolis. I know you're recovering. But I want to make you these two promises. One, whenever you want to go home, I'll fly you there. And two, when you get there, you come see me about a job. Just finished up my 7th season with Indianapolis Colts, and it's a good gig. I love it. Like I said, I spent 2 years in the hospital recovering, getting my life back on track, realizing that life kept going on. That I had to take everything I have and be thankful for the blessedness. Be thankful for the amazing country, the amazing continent that we live in, the safety that we have here. And I came back to Indiana, went home where I was born and raised. I went in and interviewed with Indianapolis Colts. And they said, Josh, we like you, your work ethic, the things you stand for. We want to give you this job and hire you. In my head, I was going crazy because I was a Colts fan, and they were saying, we're going to give you a job at the Indianapolis Colts. It was one of those moments where everything I shut out. I couldn't hear what they were saying anymore. In my head, fireworks were going off. It was awesome. And then I heard Tom Zupanzik say, hey, Josh, we want you to do public speaking. And the fireworks went away. I didn't want to do public speaking. I actually blurted out, I hate public speaking. Not what I wanted to do at all. My biggest fear when I got hurt was that I was injured, that people were going to stare, people were going to look. So I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I said, you know what? I also wanted to show how I was raised, the fighter inside of me that's going to keep going, the morals, the ethics, that I'm okay with hard work. I'm okay with dedication. It's about making a difference in this world. And I said I'd do it. I'd figure it out. My wife was a 3rd grade school teacher, so I got the brilliant idea to first practice speaking to 3rd graders. They're very critical at that age in their life. But I love them. They're hilarious, the questions they ask. One real quick story, my favorite story of 3rd graders, I walked into a room of 20 3rd graders. And every time I do that, they just look at the legs, and they're like, robot legs, and I'm sold. I sold them, because they think it's just cool. But there's one little man sitting in the front row, and he just, as soon as I walked in, he had his hand up. And the whole time, he just was raising his hand like this, back and forth. And I'm smart enough to know not to call him that kid. And I explained to him, I said, you know what, I'm just going to talk to you for a little bit. I said, then I'll give you a chance at the end to ask questions. But the whole time I spoke, he had his hand raised, the whole time. Finally, I got done speaking. I let a couple other kids ask some questions. And I couldn't take it anymore. He had been so patient. He hadn't said a word. He just did the hand thing. And so finally, I looked at him. I said, all right, you've been good. I said, what's your question? I mean, he stood right to his feet. He put his hands down to his side, just beaming ear to ear. He looked at me and he said, do you wear socks? He had waited that whole time to ask that question. And as frustrating as that was, I started to look down. And I said, I do, and I have no idea why. Sometimes it takes a different perspective. I'm okay with that. This whole group, this whole cooperation, everybody in here has different perspective on this whole industry. That's a good thing. What that does is allow you to network. It allows you to communicate. It allows you to come together to make those improvements. When you have different perspectives, it allows you to see the whole picture. This is a wonderful place to be, wonderful, hardworking people in an industry that's not the easiest, but you make a difference. I love what I do for a living. Absolutely love it. I have a beautiful wife now. I have 2 kids at home, 5 and 3 years old. Unbelievable what I've got to do. I'm very proud of the things I've done in this world. So should you, because you do make a difference. The structures, the things that you do. Ironworkers, like I said, not an easy gig. And sometimes when we do it, we complain. Sometimes, it's just like the Marine Corps. When we work hard, but when you leave it, trust me, when I left that uniform for the last time, it was the hardest thing. Hardest thing being away from it. Because it's something that you love. It's why you do it. It's why you do something not everybody can do in this world. And you guys are a part of that. Now, a job that I do now actually reminds me of a job I did in college. Something I never told the Marine Corps I did. And it couldn't be more fitting to tell this story than where we are now. Because I was in restaurant hotel management in college, and I did an internship. I did an internship right here at Walt Disney World. I used to work here. And I didn't get to work in these fabulous hotels, what I thought I was going to do, or even the wonderful restaurants they have. I drove Kilimanjaro safaris in Animal Kingdom for 6 months of my life. And I don't know who's been on this ride. You can still probably go on this ride. The whole spiel they say, they drive around a big truck. I know the whole spiel still. So I apologize for what's about to happen real fast. Karibuni, everyone, welcome aboard. Slide on over, make yourselves comfortable. My name is Josh, your wildlife driver here in Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Jambo. Jambo means hello here in Swahili, so Jambo, everyone. See? Still got it. 17 years ago I did that job, and I know the whole thing. So there's no doubt in my mind, the experience in this room, you guys know your job, you know this world. What they taught me back then is whoever gets on that ride, even if I've done it 100 times that day, I'm going to know it 17 years later. It's about that person. It may be their first experience, and I got to do my best every single day for them. It's about continuing to have that impact on this world, knowing while you're in this moment that you are making a difference. It's about having that same fire in our bellies that I had at 22 and continue to have it in what we do, the differences that we meet. To enjoy what you do, but to use this group right here to bounce ideas off, to have those emotions, to talk about this world, to completely network, to make it safer, to make it more jobs available, to keep making a difference. So I'm honored that I got to come back to say thank you to all of you. Because I've, like I said, been blessed in this world with a wonderful job, a wonderful thing. And on the way out here, I ran into my brother-in-law's brother-in-law, one of those relationships. And he's a Marine. And we started talking. And he brought up the fact that he's like, you know what, when I was younger, when he's been in for a while, he said, I didn't realize the impact that I was having on the world. He said, but now I wish I would have seen it back then. I said, you're right. We did make a difference. Same as realize that you're making a difference. Realize I've seen other countries that don't have the wonderful things that Canada has, that we have in the U.S., that all the impact that you have is amazing. Like I said, it's not always the easiest of jobs. Not always the easiest, but I tell you what, not everybody could do it, and you should be proud of that. You should absolutely be proud of all that you do. I'm proud of you, and I'm thankful for you. Now, like I said, I travel the country, and I love coming to speak to you guys. But I'm always thankful that I get to show off who I am. When I first spoke to this group 5 years ago, it was in Vegas. And it was one of my first bigger events. And I've grown since then. But I still remember being there because everybody was so nice, so wonderful. And so I just want you to know that even to this day in my office at the Indianapolis Colts, I moved offices about a year ago, and I was just telling somebody, I just took down all my stuff, and I only put up 3 pictures in my new office. 1 is a picture of my kids, my wife. 2 is a picture of a group of football players that I spoke to early on. And my 3rd one is my ironworkers. My painting that I received 5 years ago, it's number 6 out there. It's still out there. It's still on my wall because of how powerful and what that did to me. So I thank you for that support. I thank you for everything you've done for the veterans, for the honoring them, for the men and women who have served in here, the families that back them, but more than that, the ironworkers of impact. All that you do in this North America, all that you do in this continent for us, these wonderful structures, the things that people take for granted, I'm telling you, I'm thankful for. I'm telling you, you've done a wonderful job. Keep doing it. Keep finding that fire every day. Go out there and make a difference. My grandfather used to speak a lot. And he always said this. It was the ending of a prayer that he repeated many times. But the end of the prayer, the last line says, "At this day's end, may the world have been a better place because I have lived." And I try to live with that motto every day, but I know this room, the world is a better place because the people in this room have lived. And you've worked hard, and it's not easy. But you do it, and you continue to do it. So thank you for that. Continue to be blessed in this day that we have. And continue just to go on and support one another and make an impact on this world. Thanks so much, guys, and God bless.